Hi, everybody. I'm Andrea, and I've been a founder of over 5 years, and now I have co-founded like 3 companies in the AI space. At the base, I'm a front-end developer, like everybody in this room. But right now, I'm building Cube, which is that thing over there on the slide. It's an AI development studio. I'm also building ML Vanguards, which is a weekly newsletter with stories from AI in production. And lately, a startup that I hope doesn't fail. It's called Nario. And it's a tool to build agency and authority for your online personal branding. There's also this QR code over here. If you want to scan it and just ask questions during the talk, and we'll answer them at the end. Does anybody remember the title? It's Conversations Without Prompts, AI in the Web. And what does that mean? It all starts from a personal work experience because I got a chance to work on a project that's very similar to Grammarly in that it's a browser extension that highlights inputs in web pages. However, the highlights, instead of them being grammar suggestions, were AI insights and completions from the user's own curated knowledge base. So it has a business use case for improving performance and reducing knowledge silos inside companies. It was also the motivation for this talk, because I struggled with building such a browser extension since it was my first time, and I never built one before. It was a huge learning process. And today I'm showing you a snippet of how I did it and how you can build one as well. Quick note, like the title, we'll talk about AI. And by that, I mean the fancy Gen AI that's trending right now and not the pre-ChatGPT AI. That's another thing. So if you hear me say AI, just think of it as Gen AI, LLMs, things that spit out words. Here's a snippet of how my browser extension looked like when I built it. You can see that we have on the left side, that looks like Gmail, and it is. That's a draft of whatever businessy email somebody tried to write. And then we see a highlight, like Grammarly, that's the extension. And on the right-hand side, that's called the side panel. And you can kind of trace a line between what part of the text is highlighted in the draft with what's shown in the side panel. It gives you more context about those keywords and, for example, the challenger brands and different nar dot dot dot, that's narrative something. It gives you more context over what you're trying to write in that email, so you hopefully don't sound too bad or with little knowledge. Now, this is a table of contents of what we are going to talk about, setting the standard. We are going to go techie into what are browser extensions, a bit of their popularity, some statistics here and there, and the breakdown of how to build a browser extension. And at the end, we talk about the fancy AI stuff, and I'll show you some use cases of AI that's useful, because most of them are not. What I want you to get out of this talk, and if that's all you see from this talk, here's the TLDR. The browser extensions are cool, and they gain a refreshed use case with AI. They are kind of smarter chatbots. There are the boring ones, which we all know, but there is a smarter one that lives inside your browser and helps you in your day-to-day work life. And then I'll show you how I built the one like Grammarly. Just talk with you about the process, the challenges, and why it needs an actual team and not one person in 3 months to do it. So a bit of a baseline. What are browser extensions? And we all know they're not a new technology by any means. Have any of you used a browser extension before? Woohoo! Arms in the air, great! Quite a few. And yeah, in the context of a browser, we all know that you can think of them as a companion to your web experience. It's very fancy. It can be an extension that recolors your browser theme into the very Hello Kitty pink one, which is what I have. Uh, You can block ads from YouTube because we don't want them, or you can do what Grammarly does and you can check your grammar so you sound more professional at work. It's basically a module inside your browser that provides some level of customization and interactivity. Now, in the context of companies, there was a survey that I wanted to show you just to sell the idea of browser extensions. And this is done by PixieBricks. They surveyed senior IT professionals in US companies with over 1,000 employees. So big enterprises. It was the 2023 State of Browser Extensions, and it paints the picture of how browser extensions are viewed plus their value in business context. So we have 93% of enterprise adoption. People are actually using them. We have 70% of the companies developing their own internal browser extensions to help in their day-to-day work life. And AI, surprisingly enough, is the top category with over 70% of extensions being with some AI capabilities. And that was 2023. It's 2 years in the future now. It sounds like they generate a good amount of value for businesses as well as employees. Now, for regular users, where we in a personal life can choose whether to use an extension or not, nobody's pre-installing it for us. We have another study from Moldstud, and they state some of these numbers. But I want to take the survey in the room right now. So how many of you installed at least one browser extension, add-on, whatever it is? Yeah, it's more than 30% in here. And did it enhance your browser experience? Say yes. That's about the 70%. Now, did it help you increase your productivity in watching YouTube videos with no ads? Damn, that's below 70%. Well, the figures are pretty telling, kind of in this room as well. The browser extensions are quite hot and popular, especially this year. But I do want to talk about privacy, which we all care about. And if we talk about browser extensions, I feel like we need to mention it, because about 50% of users have uninstalled an extension due to privacy concerns. And I've done as well with Honey. Who here has heard about their scandal? Right, so for those who don't know, they did something really nasty in the sense that they were supposed to help you as a customer find coupons on the internet and give you these great discounts. But what it would do is that it would steal money from the referrals links the other influencers or people sold you the idea on. So you could go to your favorite YouTuber, whatever one from that list. They sell you a video camera, you click on the link that attaches a referral cookie into your browser. And what would Honey do is that on the checkout, it would overwrite that cookie with their own, and they will cash in the referral fee, and the person who sold you the idea gets nothing. And we have some repercussions for that from Google Chrome. And they tightened up their security policy. So that's something I feel it's relevant because there's a lot of bad actors trying to get data and scam people via browser extensions. And it's fairly easier to do than a Nigerian prince on an email. The techie part. So when I first started building extensions, like everybody, I knew nothing. I didn't know what it was supposed to do and how it worked. So I started looking into it, and it was quite different from what I'm used to on a web app kind of platform. There I had components, I can import and export from files. It was madness, great. You can do that in an extension. So think of each of these things you see here on a pyramid like a layer. They are components that are separate enough that you have very few ways to connect them and make them communicate with each other. They're kind of isolated environments in their own scope. The first extension I did, it was just that. That little JSON file you see, it's called a manifest, and that's the requirement for building a browser extension. It's kind of like packaged JSON in our web apps. It gives you some metadata about the extension. You can bring in more scripts and name and assets and icons and all of that. But that's an extension. But the talk is not over. There's a bit more to that. But think of it like your config hub, right? This is how I started with that Grammarly copycat. But obviously, I needed a bit more than that. I needed a way to parse a web page, go through each input, text area, or a div that's content editable through, and get that text so I can send it to some smart AI, do some processing, and highlight some stuff. Well, the first part, with injecting some scripts into the DOM, manipulating the DOM, reading data from it, was done via content scripts. They're injected into web pages, be it on page load end. Whenever you open a tab, the extensions you have right now inject some scripts into that tab and trying to do something with that. Now, if we are to look at it from a web app perspective, it's like the in-page UI logic. It's great for overlays, for tooltips, just doing stuff with data in browser. So in the context of Grammarly, via content scripts, I can read content on a page, do something with it, and then I can inject some styles and some HTML to highlight specific keywords in that page that I feel like highlighting. And also I can specify how that highlight looks like. But I need to do something with the text I get from the pages, right? I needed to process it, to send it to the AI part, which is the smart one. And for that, I need something to connect to the API that's called like a background script. They run in the background, as the name, and they listen for events from the browser, from the tabs, and events I send via my content scripts. With the background scripts, I was able to connect to my API and start making requests so I can process some of the data I got from people's web pages and kind of get those AI insights so I can spit it back out in the front end. If we are to go back to the parallel with the web app, this is kind of like a Redux state logic. It just holds things. You don't necessarily interact with it as a user. Now, another fun thing, and this is purely UI, is this pop-up page, which is HTML, CSS. You can add some JavaScript to it. You can add some functionality. But it's mostly that little thing that pops up when you click in the toolbar on your extension icon. It gives you some customizability and settings. In my context, I needed this as a way to toggle on and off the extension because it can be pretty annoying to have AI constantly running in your browser. But now I've presented you the manifest, right? The backbone of an extension. I've shown you how to inject scripts into a web page, how to do something with those with the things you get from the web page, send it to an API, do some logic, have some settings in a pop-up. However, at the start, I told you that extensions are like, they have layers. They are, what was it? Separate, unique entities, components that don't really interact with each other. And the way they interact is with the messaging system. And that comes from a runtime API in the group, in the Chrome browser, or you can have ports. Now, these messages are events, one-off events that are sent between the content and the background layer, the background and the pop-up layer, the content and the pop-up, and so on. That's the way they communicate. And at least in my specific use case, it was a pain. to do async API calls and show to the user constantly that things are loading, because they are not inherently async. They are very synchronous. So I would keep overwriting my UI feedback with the loading states, and that was not fun. Now, there are two ways. Like I've said, the runtime.send message, that's a one-off thing. You're just sending a text to somebody. Or you can have an open connection, a port. That's like you having a video call with somebody, you keep talking, they eventually answer back, and it's an open communication. So by this point, I had everything I needed to copy Grammarly. I had my highlights in a page, injected via content script. I could read things from inputs, still via content script. I would message it back to the background script so I can connect to my API, process stuff, show to the user, but it was time to send it or like display it in the Chrome Web Store. And that's where I found out that the array of permissions I added in my manifest.json file was not always needed to be so long. Because they will tell you, they will give you a form for every permission you have added, and you need to specify exactly why you are using it. Why do you need to access the active tab of the user? Why do you need to access the storage, the browser storage with your extension? And you need to justify every single permission. And if your explanation is not good enough, or if it does not align with what you have in your code, or it serves no purpose, then you cannot publish on the Chrome store. So, pro tip, keep it short and simple, and only have the permissions you need in your permissions array in the manifest.json file. Now, there are other assets you can add. Maybe you want to put your logo from your company as an icon. That would be something good to do. You can specify in the manifest.json file. There are some other stuff that take part in a browser extension. I didn't cover all of them in this talk because there's plenty of things. You have like an options page. You can override dev tools in some way or another, but it's just extra stuff that's outside of the scope. However, yeah, the diagram looks great. Happy you guys like it. What I do want to talk about with this slide is just about some pain points with the storage system that Chrome has, or extensions in general. We are used to local storage and session storage in browser, right? We can access it, we can view it. It's awesome. We don't store too much in it because we have internal logic that makes sense. Well, with browser extensions, you don't really have that logic that makes sense because the layers are decoupled. And you do have like 4 types of storage. You have local, you have session, managed, and a sync one. We're not talking about the last two. The local and the session is the same as the browser, but the funny part is that you cannot see it directly. And you can imagine the debugging nightmare that was. I can paint a picture. It's like the color of the slide. So yeah, my best practice tip here would be to not store so much complex data structures in the storage because you will not be able to see it. You have to console log every time to see the state of your storage. And I would not store sensitive data, even though the documentation said it's quite secure. As we all know, how secure can it really be? And that was the techie part. I talked a bit about this use case of copying Grammarly and giving out AI insights over the information in people's inputs and email drafts and so on. And this is the case of a proactive AI that does not wait around for you to do anything. It just does it in the background. I want to deep dive a bit into what I mean with this word proactive, right? What does that mean? Now, who's used a chatbot before? Fair enough. Quite a lot. um, we are used to seeing inputs in a screen, right? You have your little text box and you have a chat history, and that's all you see. And we are used to prompting the AI to get the answer that we want. We try our hardest to explain what we want so that the AI, which is like very enthusiastic but needs a lot of guidance, it needs to understand and return a good enough output for what we need in our use case. We've also dumped a lot of text with just a simple command to explain. Like a drama queen we are. And then if we look back a bit, that dump of text with explain can also be, if you think of other uh, extensions or other use cases, we can now select some text on the page. And I think there is Gemini AI in our Gmail and Drive. You can select some stuff and it will summarize it for you. So the instruction we are giving it there would be explain this very specific thing that we are doing. You know, you select what you want and then you dump the information in the chatbot with the AI. And now let's imagine that you don't do anything. Easy enough. You just go about your day on the browser, you write an email because we have to do that. You write some documentation in Confluence. And there is this creepy overseeing AI that's reading what you're doing. It connects with the database it has, and it tells you that, hey, that spec you're just writing right now is not what it's supposed to be. Like, you should correct. It's not in 2 days. It's going to be done in 2 weeks. Like, don't be like that to your team. And it does that autonomously without you going to ask if that deadline is 2 days or 2 weeks and people looking weirdly at you. And this is all done without you actioning on it and without you inputting anything in an interface. It happens in the background. And the instruction turns into watch this. You just do things. The AI is watching you. Creepy. And it's giving you output without any effort on your part. And we have this enthusiastic AI that's learning and supplementing the information where you need it autonomously. It thinks for you a little bit. I know I just said like the word creepy a lot. And it's quite like a big brother, always overseeing what you're doing. But that's if we look at it from a personal perspective. So let me sell you the idea going into a business context. And then it turns into a micromanager, which we are more used to. So hear me out. You started working on a project that's been ongoing for a year, right? You're joining a team and they're already deep into it. They've got Notion pages. They've got Slack threads, internal tools. You have the pins in on Slack that, yeah, tell you so much. You have dashboards, code bases, Google Docs that have been updated at the start of the project but now are quite outdated. I think we know what we're talking about. So what you would do conventionally is that you would ping your teammates 1,000 times asking for where a document is or what's the new spec for this feature that nobody ever talked about. Or you can go by yourself on a scavenger hunt across all the tools and try to find out why the project is the way it is. But that's a bit time consuming. So I want to flip it with a more proactive approach. And there's a tool for that. It's called Glean. When I told you I was building something like Grammarly, it was mostly UI based. The functionality was more like Glean. They were our competition at the time. And what they are doing is that they live in as a browser extension, the theme of the talk. They're small, they don't do anything. You don't know it's there until you actually need a piece of information you don't know where to get, and suddenly this AI knows what it's talking about. So Glean is like having a personal search engine that actually understands your company's internal knowledge, right? You don't prompt it with anything. You just go about your day, you start researching that documentation or writing a new spec, you open a Jira ticket, you check your Slack, actually, or start writing in a thread, and then Glean just connects all the dots of what you're doing in the background. And then it sends you relevant links or summaries or people who worked on similar things. And you don't need to say, explain stuff to me. It explains it to you in a proactive way where you don't have to interact with it. It thinks about what you're going to ask because it's seen what you've been doing, and it just gives you the answer. It's basically a layer of intelligence that augments your browser in real time. So this is what I mean with proactive. You know, it's not just about how we talk with AI, it's about when and why the AI decides to talk with us. It's the difference between you searching for something, for the answer, and then the answer that's searching for you. And in a work environment, especially fast-paced ones, the shift isn't just a cool demo, it's actually a massive productivity boost. Ta-da! We are on the last leg of the presentation, so hang on. Because with the rise of Gen AI in general, we have browser extensions that are actually catching up. And it's not just a SaaS platform where rolling out AI capability means a chatbot that allows you to chat with your data, or whatever that specifically means. There are browser extensions that use AI that are not new on the market. And they don't have to be proactive because sometimes you don't want an enthusiastic AI telling you what to do next. Sometimes you know what you want to do and you want a piece of information summarized on the spot on YouTube, for example, and you don't want to do any extra effort for it. So I'm going to talk a bit about Liner. And they started out as a browser extension in 2015. And then it grew into a kind of personal assistant role because now it enables users to interact with content on web pages, on PDFs, on YouTube videos in real time. So you can get instant summaries, ask questions directly on a page regarding whatever is written on that page, or you can simplify the complex text in a research paper and you don't have to leave the tab that you're in. So another cool feature they have is that all the things you're highlighting on the web, they get sent into like a very layered, organized system where you can store all the highlights and the important pieces of information that are relevant to you. Now, it's used by students, researchers, or anyone really doing deep work online. And again, since 2015, which is way before Gen AI was a trend, they turned just a classic browser extension of highlighting on the web into a smart AI-powered one that gives purpose to the AI part. Another great example that I've tested is just for AI. They started as a SaaS, right? They have a great model trained on generating high quality content. And I've tested it. It was good content. It can write short form, long form. It can expand the content you have, summarize it, or change the tone entirely. or your own writing, right? And when they rolled out the browser extension, all these features were available everywhere on the net. So think Notion, Google Docs, LinkedIn when you're trying to be an influencer, or wherever you're working, real time, you have the writing assistance where you need it. Now, I painted a pretty productivity-oriented picture, but that's what currently generative AI is best used at, right? Efficiency and optimization. That's what it does. We can see a shift away from chatbots and towards AI with purpose that doesn't wait around to be asked to do something. Instead of it being a destination, it's the journey. And it doesn't stop there, right? There are tools like GrUSP, and they are turning AI into a personalized learning engine. It helps you deep dive with deeper questions, helping you think, acting like a private tutor. And that's still a browser extension. And there's a whole wave of productivity-focused extensions like Magical or Reclaim that use AI to streamline repetitive work. So I hope that by now I sold you on two things. And first one is that AI browser extensions are here to stay and can become quite useful. And I hope that now you feel equipped to start building your own for your own personal use. Here are some references, and if you have questions,